This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Lenovo Yoga 9i. It basically replaces the Lenovo Yoga C940. So this is the 15-inch model, or 15.6-inch to be exact. Still kind of an unusual breed of laptop. It's a 15.6-inch convertible. And not just that, but it has Intel H-series 45-watt powerful CPUs, the kind you would find in gaming laptops and mobile workstations, and NVIDIA GTX 1650 Ti Max-Q graphics as well. And it supports a pen, and the pen lives in the silos, so hey, you won't lose it. We're going to look at it now. Other creature comforts include an aluminum casing that's fairly rigid, a white backlit keyboard with number pad on board, Wi-Fi 6, Intel flavor AX201 with Bluetooth 5.0, so a pretty complete package. It's available with a full HD display. It's IPS, pen, and touch support, and that's probably what you're going to find in most stores. But there is a 4K display option, but that gets pretty pricey. So this one, configured pretty nicely, which is the unit we have, has an Intel Core i7 10th Gen 6-core CPU, the NVIDIA graphics that I mentioned, 16 gigs of RAM, and it has a terabyte M.2 NVMe SSD full HD display. So they do have on Lenovo's website a super maxed out model with a 2 terabyte SSD, a Core i9 8-core processor, and a 4K display, but that's like $2,700. That's kind of getting up there, obviously, in price. It's getting more expensive than some ThinkPads that Lenovo offers as very premium devices. The pen is handy for those of you who are hobbyists doing art. If you want to do note-taking, you're still okay with the bigger screen ergonomically for note-taking, and for things like annotating PDFs. Speaking of that, and now a shout out to our video sponsor, Wondershare's PDF Element Pro. They have a new version 8 out with a much simplified user interface. I mean, take a look at that. You can't get simpler and more intuitive than that. It still has all the features of PDF Element version 7, just presented in a way that you can understand, which is something that you can't say about a lot of, PDF editing apps out there. It's 300% faster for launch time, they say. And also for those of you who are allergic to subscription models, you can just buy a straight out license and not have to have a subscription model, but you can do a subscription too if you like. So it has all the things that you'd expect of a good PDF editor. You can do things like insert images, you can insert blocks of text, you can actually add watermarks if you want to. As you can see here, I'm watermarking this document. You can OCR documents as well, and that's a pretty neat feature. And they also have batch functionality. So say you want to batch watermark or you want to batch OCR documents, you can do that too. Of course, it does exports to things like text. You can see us exporting it to Word pretty quick, actually, too. HTML formats. So be sure to check out the link in the description and try PDF Element Pro 8 for yourself. And now back to our video. The laptop is fairly portable, given that it is a 15.6-inch model. It's 2 kilograms, which is 4.41 pounds, under an inch thick, and tapers, so it's a little thinner at the front. But still, it's not too bad. For a convertible, you want something that's not too heavy, obviously, because you can use it in tablet mode and want to be able to hold it in your lap somehow. Tent mode, obviously, presentation mode, it does all those things just fine. So who is this for? It's fairly powerful. It has the specs nominally of an entry-level gaming laptop even. It's for creative types, really, who are looking for something that's good for Photoshop. You have the pen and make editing easier. Maybe you are a hobby kind of artist there. It has a fairly color accurate full HD display that covers the full sRGB spectrum, and there is that 4K option if you want, but given the shorter battery life and the expense that adds on, probably most people will be picking that for the Yoga 9i. It's also obviously for those who enjoy multimedia and watching movies and all that sort of fun stuff. It has the rotating sound bar, which is a Lenovo nifty little feature, so it rotates, so even if you're using a different orientation, not standard laptop mode, you'll hear the 2 woofers and 2 tweeters. Despite those 2 woofers, the bass is not really very umphy. I expected a little bit more, actually. It gets really loud, that's for sure, but yeah, this is not going to replace your external good speakers, let's put it that way. But it's better than the average smaller Ultrabook. Speaking of that, there is also a 9i 14-inch, and that one is an Ultrabook, a very different performance and size class of laptop, and also difference in battery life too. Speaking of battery life, this is a 69 watt-hour battery, which is somewhere in between what you would see in a higher-end 13-inch Ultrabook and what you would see in a bigger laptop. And that means that battery life is somewhere in between. Again, we have the full HD display in the Core i7 here. And if you're doing productivity tasks, Zoom calls, for example, streaming video, working on documents, then we saw at 150 nits of brightness about 6 hours of battery life, so it's going to be less, probably by 2 hours if you go with the 4K display, which is also IPS, not an OLED option there, as far as I know. Back to the display again, they claim it's 500 nit, whether you go with the 4K or the full HD. We measured, yeah, in the upper 370s. You can see the metrics on screen there, so not quite that bright, but still, for a machine of this class, that's pretty darn good. Again, color accuracy on the graph, as you can see, that was pretty good, certainly out of the factory, and the color coverage is fine. The displays are HDR400 rated, and really that's not that big a deal. Honestly, it just basically means it hits 400 nits of brightness and has a reasonably decent contrast ratio. Now, ports on this is not so great for this class of laptop in terms of its size and the mobile workstation level kind of specs that we have on board. You have 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, that's great, so those support docks and display out and all that sort of thing. 1 lone USB-A port and a headphone jack. And that's it for a kind of largish, powerful laptop. I would have liked to have seen more. Maybe this is the way of the future, started by Apple, I don't know. But that's what it is here. If you need more ports, look at a different laptop, that's for sure. In terms of performance, well, it's a pretty performant laptop. It should be with these specs. I can't imagine what the Core i9 would be like, but it might have a little challenge with thermals there. You know how Intel 45-watt CPUs are, especially when you start piling on the cores and stuff like that. But our Core i7, typically for productivity work, for doing Adobe Premiere, Photoshop, Zoom calls, easy, sure. The temperatures for the cores were just fine, typically in the 50s centigrade. 100 is the maximum, so headroom. Yes, we have headroom there. If you're pushing it hard in games, it will thermal throttle, but then again, so will gaming laptops. But this is not a purpose-built gaming laptop. You can, and you can see footage of Apex Legends playing at high 1080p, and it does just absolutely great. It can go faster than the 60 hertz refresh of the display, so yeah. And the throttling on it isn't that bad considering, but the surface temperatures aren't too bad either, but you will hear the fans. In fact, on this laptop, you'll hear the fans even doing productivity sort of work occasionally. So nothing super loud and egregious, but these days people care more about that because we're all doing video conferencing and all that sort of thing. So be mindful, you may hear the fans coming on. And they're the typical kind of whoosh sound, not screaming, but the sound will be there. Obviously, a headset could help with that, isolating you from the laptop's sound. To get inside, it's not too hard. Torx T5 screws, just be mindful, the 4 in the front are shorter, kind of typical laptop screws, and the ones in the back are like, I haven't seen a laptop screw this long in a while. So, you put them back in the right place when you're done. After you unscrew that, be sure to pull out the pen, because it can catch on the pen that slides into the silo. There's our metal cover. Decent amount of ventilation. There's some speaker holes right there. That's the underside of the cover. And here are internals, which for a machine of this class and size, again, I'm a little disappointed the RAM slots are gone. Now this is where they used to be, and then, well, now there's just RAM chips soldered on board. So RAM is not upgradable. Get it with 16 gigs, and you're going to have 16 gigs for the life of the machine. We have our M.2 SSD slot right here, and we have a 1 terabyte fast SSD in ours. Cooling system, obviously fan for CPU and GPU, and our heat sinks over here. And average size for a convertible on the powerful side. Obviously not as big and beefy as, say, a gaming laptop, but this is, again, not meant to really be a gaming laptop. Battery is back here, and 2 of the speaker drivers that fire downward are here. And, of course, the speakers and the soundbar as well. And lastly, here is our Wi-Fi card, which is socketed as well, but it's a good Intel Wi-Fi AX201 card, so probably you're not going to want to change that. So that's the Lenovo Yoga 9i 15-inch, the powerful one. And really, there still are not a lot of laptops in the space that are convertibles with pen support and the powerful processors and the dedicated graphics. Obviously, HP has made Spectre X360 15 inches that fit the bill. They're typically a little bit more expensive than this, so Lenovo's always good with their very aggressive pricing. The battery life is not a super strong point, but keyboard feels pretty nice on this, not very much different from the C940 before, so I didn't spend that much time talking about it. Typically low travel, but a pretty decent feel. The displays on these are pretty decent. Even the full HD has good color coverage and color accuracy, so if you want to do some Photoshop and all that sort of thing, you got it. And you have enough power here and a decent enough cooling system to play some games too, even if that's not its primary purpose in life. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.